Hello everyone, I am back again for the final video that I'll be making for this evening because Thursday I won't be available, but this is still going to be a what I would have done Thursday as I've done before, and I figured why not start off this second Thursday with something that I think a lot of people in the movie-going as well as book community have already sort of been familiarized with and have probably known a lot about, and that is the book as well as movie franchise of Twilight. Yes, I think a lot of people have heard of Twilight and have either strong feelings about Twilight, whether you strongly dislike or strongly like Twilight. Regardless, this is not a video to be on either side of the spectrum here. But regarding my own personal opinion of Twilight, I don't care for it. It's not my style of writing. It's not really my style of book so much either. I don't particularly care for Stephenie Meyer's writing. I don't really care for the characters. I don't care for the plot too much. I've only read 2 of the books, and then after the second book I just couldn't go on with the series because I just wasn't finding anything that I found compelling or interesting for me to continue. But I understand if some people do find something fascinating about it and do find some things within the novel that they particularly find identifiable or relatable, or however you want to put the likability of Twilight on a scale. But I really personally, for the most part, don't have a strong dislike for it, unlike some people out there. I'm not passionately filled with rage whenever somebody brings up Twilight. Do I dislike it? Yes, pretty much. I do dislike it. I don't find a lot of things within the book as well as within the movie franchise, which are basically the same thing. Even though they did change, I think, a few things around within the books, it's still Stephenie Meyer's writing, and that's really what a lot of people said was the problem with the films. So really, again, I don't think there's really much distinction between the books and the movie, as far as when you're looking at the grander scheme of things. Even though there might have been certain things that were changed around. Just could not get into the series at all. Just was not my cup of tea. I totally understand if there's people out there who like it and find some kind of appeal, but the appeal wasn't for me personally. The appeal wasn't there for the movies. It wasn't there for the books either. Because basically pretty much they followed the same sort of thing, because they were again taking Stephenie Meyer's writing and incorporating it into the movies. So for the most part, just couldn't hold on to anything. And the reason why I don't have a strong passionate hatred for it like a lot of other people that I've seen have is because it's kind of just yeah, it's not my kind of book. It's not my kind of characters, but at the same time, I don't think it's so just wrenchingly, unbearably bad. Is there a lot of bad stuff in it that I would change? And yes, there's a lot of stuff in there in Twilight I would change, and this is what this video is intended to discuss. But I just wanted to get out there firstly just my personal opinion. And my personal opinion is that I don't have strong feelings for it one way or the other, but I do dislike the series. I don't find anything that I can for me to hold on to, because a lot of what I end up finding is things that don't really, I think, they just don't appeal to me. I think this will be sort of explained through the changes that I would make in order to explain what I would have done with this Twilight franchise. And probably what I come up with is probably not perfect either. It's kind of hard to reconstruct a 4-book series, but I'm just going to take Twilight as a franchise as a whole, so I'm not going to talk about what I would change from the first book, the second book, the third book, the fourth book, but I'm just going to say as a whole what I think the main issues of Twilight were for me personally, and what I would have done instead to make it more better in my personal opinion. So again, this is a whole opinion-based video. You can take it for what it is. This is not to say I'm right, you're wrong. No, not at all. This is just a video just throwing my opinion out there as to what I would do with this series. So again, don't have strong opinion of the series one way or another, but I don't find a lot of what is in it, unlike Avatar, which I did come back from liking, just not a whole lot, to a franchise where I will openly admit that I dislike, and it's okay if you do like it. I understand if you do, but for me personally, it just didn't do anything for me, and I think everybody has the right to their own opinion, and I think from this video personally, I'm just saying that this is what I would have done to make it maybe possibly a little bit more bearable for me to read and to watch the films. Now, I think when it comes to the heart of the matter of Twilight is that Twilight is not really a plot-based so much. I don't think Stephanie Myers was intending for it to be so much plot-based, because it seems like she's trying to do a lot with the characters, but I think when she does a lot with the characters, it doesn't come out as the most well constructed. It almost seems like she was lost as to what to do with these characters, because a lot of these characters are fairly one-note. But I think the biggest problem that I have with the characters is just I don't find them fairly likable. Throughout the entire series, Bella to me was just not likable. There was nothing within her character that was interesting or appealing. Nothing within her character that said to me, yeah, this is a typical teenage girl. This is what a teenage girl goes through. This is what teenagers are like. I didn't really get that with Bella at all. I just thought she was so I just thought her character was just such a bore to read, especially when she complains about things that aren't really necessarily such huge issues. And even though it does establish that her parents are divorced, it doesn't seem like the divorce is really, when I was reading the books as well as when I even looked at the trailers of the movies, that it seems like that they really touch on it or really go into depth so much about it. It just seems like it's kind of treated as, that's just how it is, and I don't think it really impacts Bella's character all that much. And I think the problem with her is that her character is just doesn't have a lot of likability to her, and nothing really interesting. I just found her character to be so dull. Like, really not a lot of personality within her character. that it was just hard for me to really get into what was going on with her, because I just didn't find anything within her that made her interesting, made her funny, made her likable or approachable. And then for some reason she's thrown into these circumstances where everybody likes her and everybody wants to be around her, and I go, what's so interesting about her? It just it doesn't make any sense. So a lot of Twilight doesn't really make any sense to me, at least, but still there was just this likability factor that wasn't there. She just felt so lifeless and dull. And the fact that they give her two guys that are after her, two men, count 1, 2 men, is just, what? Like, what? How, what? Why would they like her? What's the reason they like each other again? What? Why do they want to pursue her? What's so special about her? And that's what I was kind of thinking throughout the entire thing. I'm going, throughout the entire franchises, is that the main problem, I think, and the main problem a lot of people, I think, have when it comes to Twilight is really Bella's character. I think ultimately her character is just not as likable as a lot of other teen novels, like I've discussed in my Sarah Dessen book. She just doesn't have any character really to her, and she complains about the smallest things, and it doesn't seem like there's really any issues within her life. And then they make it, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh, I want to be a vampire now. And the only reason really she wants to be a vampire is just so that she can be with Edward. And that, in a nutshell, is just it doesn't set up a strong female protagonist. And I think women of this age, especially me, I just go, are we going back to the Middle Ages? I mean, are we really going back to the Middle Ages with this kind of a character? You know, especially when she has a child so young, and has to deal with, you know, choosing between two other boys, and I go, why are these boys even after her in the first place? You know, it doesn't give me anything to invest in. If she was a likable character, if she had some interesting qualities to her, then this would totally change a lot of people's, I think, perception of the whole series. Because she's really the foundation of what the series is about. I mean, the books are told through her perspective. The movies are pretty much told in that kind of same format. You know, they really needed to make her likable. And for some reason, I don't understand why the people who do like the series like her, because I don't find anything within her that's so likable, that really stands out to me. I don't really understand, from reading the books and watching the trailers of the movies, I don't see anything that really sells a character. She seems so dull and lifeless, and when I read the first two books, I that's why I couldn't go on. I went, this character is just not likable to me. I mean, I just don't find anything interesting or insightful to her character, and she doesn't really have a lot of interesting, likable qualities to her that would make me want to root for her, make me want to, you know, see her as a friend or a role model. So yeah, I think that's really the basic thing that Stephenie Meyers, as well as the movies, what they should have done. They should have started from scratch and made Bella's character a lot more likable. I think a lot of people who do not like the series, in particular, have issues with her character. And I think if they made her a lot more likable, then we would be more invested in the love triangle, and we would be more invested into what happens to her as a character. And maybe if we would take away the whole idea of her getting pregnant when she's 18, and, you know, making her a more responsible role model for young women, then it would have gotten me a lot more invested in the story. And I think that's really just the one, if not the biggest issue that I had personally with the series of Twilight and what I would have done. Starting from scratch, make Bella's character likable and identifiable. And I think another thing that I think really drags the series down is the fact that they have this love triangle. Now, I think love triangles are okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with putting a love triangle within your series or books. But when you make it 3 books long and then have it be with this character, it really makes it hard for people to sit through it and care. And that's the problem I had, is I didn't particularly care for her character, and I didn't care what ended up happening within her love life, really, because of the fact that I didn't see anything within her character that made me really like her. It really makes a series drag down with it when you have this love triangle that goes on through 3 books with a character, that the main character, who's not really likable. I think also the fact that they make the love triangle seem like the centerpiece for the most part of the 3 books. It's sort of established in the 4th book that, you know, yeah, we're breaking away from the triangle here because Edward and Bella are getting married, you know, and that's all broken down now. But still, having a love triangle be sort of your kind of centerpiece as you go through these 3 books, and for the most part, it seems like for the most part, the movies focus upon this love triangle, really, and I just find her character to be fairly manipulative and such a damsel all the time, and not really productive to the plot, that the love triangle makes it so contrived. So I think within this series, if you want to make a love triangle, you can. I just think that the novel shouldn't have had the love triangle as sort of this big centerpiece throughout 3 books. If they put it more towards the side and made it seem like it was there, but not make it so much the entire series' focus, because it seems like that's what a lot of people got out of the books, because you don't really hear them talking about, you know, the little plots that were going on within the novels so much as you hear them talking about the love triangle, you know, Team Edward, Team Jacob. That whole thing, that whole shenanigan is really what made the series for people. Is this whole love triangle that really impacted the series as a whole, and I feel like if they focused on other things than just this love triangle, then we would have gotten a more interesting and in-depth story. So yeah, I think that was just one of the other things that I would have changed too, is don't make the love triangle be your centerpiece through 3 books. Especially 3 books. And I know there were certain plots within Twilight, but it doesn't seem like a lot of people remember those things as so much as they remember Bella not being sure about what guy she wants to be with. So I think if they made it a lot more shorter, had they ended it maybe with the first book, you know, instead of waiting and dragging it out for 3 books, it could have allowed for a lot more depth, I think, and a lot more growth from the characters too. Not just Bella's, but Edward and Jacob's as well. Instead of, you know, dragging it all the way to the 4th book. So yeah, I think that's another problem that I had with the series, and I would have just maybe had it off to the side and focused on other things that they could have brought out, especially with vampires, because there is a lot of stuff that you can do with vampires, and you don't need to make a love triangle as your centerpiece for 3 books. You just don't need to do it, because there's a lot of other things that you can deal with when you're dealing with vampires. Another issue that I had with Twilight doesn't so much deal with its characters now, it deals with the plot. I think the plot is the other big problem that people have with this series. There are sometimes stakes. I think that Stephenie Meyers tries to provide those stakes, but I think they're just fairly sloppy. They don't feel like they're well constructed. They feel rather sloppy and sloppily put together, in my opinion. And I think it would be more interesting if they maybe took things from a more mystery type-esque approach, kind of like they did with the first book, and how there's this person that dies. I think they could have taken it from that approach and that angle, or and in doing so, maybe have Bella's character be like a half vampire, half human, or half werewolf or something, to maybe make her character more interesting and have it revolve around her trying to solve maybe a mystery or something like that. I think if Stephenie Meyers made it more upon a mystery approach as far as the plot is concerned, and then you could actually make a series with that too, because, you know, you can make different mysteries that she goes on and then she develops as a character, you know, and you know, she meets vampires, she meets werewolves. I think taking it from that more mystery-like angle probably would have been better. I think Buffy the Vampire Slayer sort of follows the same kind of formula, but at the same time, Buffy's out there to go and kill the vampires, but they could have made it different I think, with Twilight, in that she doesn't go after them, but she figures out who's responsible for, you know, murdering somebody or somebody's disappearance. You know, make her that kind of a character, and I think that would allow her to be a lot stronger and more independent character, too, if they centered the plot around some kind of a mystery, and made it, and had her go out and maybe solve a mystery or solve a case. I think that actually would have been a lot more interesting, and would allow a lot of growth from her character. And can you have her make mistakes and have flaws? Absolutely. You know, that's totally acceptable. I just think that her overall as a character, by the fact that she had this totally bizarre love triangle plot, and then all these little subplots that don't really go anywhere, I think that's really what dragged the series down so much, too. And I think if they had like a focus, if Stephenie Meyers had a direction of where she wanted to take the series, because it doesn't seem like she had a direction of where she was going. It was almost like she was putting dots on a map and then somehow connected these dots, but these dots that are connected are just not done in a straight and a clear path. You know, they're all like zigzag and all everywhere. So if they made it more, I think, based upon like a mystery or some kind of mystery type-esque series, then it would have, I think, allowed a lot more character study, a lot more plot study, and it would have given Bella's character something to work with, despite her being so much as an ultimate decider of who she wants to be with. And you could have who she wants to be with, be sort of on the side, just have it be kind of in the background somewhere, and maybe continue it on through maybe the next book or something like that. But I feel like you can't really drag a love triangle, because it just gets frustrating, and I think if you want to make a love triangle, I think dragging it doesn't really build up to anything, unless you construct the characters, I think, in a productive way. So I think in the end, Stephenie Meyers could have kept the love triangle dragged out if she wanted to, but she really didn't have to put it as like the formal centerpiece of the entire 3 books. And it seems like a lot of what people remember by the Twilight franchise is, again, this love triangle. And I feel like that the love triangle is really what dragged the books down for me. And I think if they put it more in the background, then she could have dragged it out a little bit longer, but not to make it as such a huge focal point in your book. So I think if Twilight had some kind of a structure of having it be a mystery and Bella maybe solves a mystery or something like that, I think that would have been a better construction. And then you have werewolves and you have vampires, and you can maybe add in other creatures too. Then that would probably work a lot better, and you could still have it take place during our time period and stuff. Now, I think this is more of a side issue for people. Some people may not be bothered by this, but the last and final point that I wanted to really make regarding Twilight is, I think the vampires should be structured more like vampires. In all 4 books, it does seem like the vampires sort of are incorporated to act a lot like humans, that they don't feel like vampires, especially the fact that they don't suck people's blood and stuff like that. Like, they're vegetarian vampires, even though they still eat meat. I've never really got that, how that can be vegetarian, or when they still eat meat, they just don't eat human meat, or human blood. But not only that, I don't think that bothers me so much, but I think it's the whole concept of putting them in high school, and having them in a location, oh, the sun doesn't come out, so that means that they can still be around in the daylight, ooh, yeah, and then having them sparkle, I think is just, that's a little odd for me. I've never understood why she made them sparkle, but everybody has their own opinions about that. But I think the issue for me, for the most part, was them just going into high school. Like, why do vampires need to go to high school? Like what's the point? There's no point in them being there. It's just, I don't understand the whole, why do they need to be in high school? What's the whole point of them being in high school? I don't understand why they can't just be like night creatures and come out at night, and then Bella meets them during nighttime or something like that. I don't understand why they need to be incorporated into her high school. And the thing too is that it seems like her relationship, especially with Edward, seems so obsessive too, by the fact that they put him in high school. Because Lily, in one of the books, it says that he rearranged all his classes just so he could be with her in all the classes. Okay, are you really that obsessed with your, is he really that obsessed with her? And then also the idea of him coming when she's sleeping and watching her sleep, and and that stuff, even though he doesn't really know her that well, and that stuff is just, it's just so odd. And I think it would have been a lot better had they kept the whole creepiness factor out of Edward's character. And I think that definitely could have been minimized had they not incorporated him into the high school, along with his whole entire family too. Just don't. And make him less creepy and less awkward and less manipulative, and make Bella less manipulative. See, both of these characters are fairly manipulative. They're dull manipulators. That's pretty much those two characters in a nutshell. Jacob is the only character that I find to be the most likable out of all of them. I think even the Nostalgia Critic mentions his kind of his strong like for Jacob, because he's the only one that seems actually kind of normal, and I think that's understandable. Does Jacob have his flaws? Absolutely. He is a little bit he can get a little bit angry at times. He has a little bit of anger management issues, but I think that's kind of understandable if he is a werewolf, because you know how werewolves change and they become mad, you know, and I think that kind of makes sense. I mean, that I think is a possible trait to have when you have this kind of condition that makes you change into something completely different. I think that's totally understandable, and I know his character is flawed, but I think he's a more well-rounded character, and is probably the only three-dimensional character throughout the entire series. And you wonder why Bella doesn't pick him, and it still baffles me why she picks Edward, because I don't find anything about Edward's character to be interesting. So not only does Bella need to be changed, but I think definitely Edward as well needs to be made to be a better, more rounded character, sort of like Jacob in a sense. And also the other characters too, but the other characters, it's not necessarily that you have to that they need to be changed as far as likability is concerned, but they just need to be given time. I mean, these characters don't get a lot of time, and you get Jacob, or you get Jacob and Bella, or you get Bella and Edward, and those are the only characters really that Stephenie Meyers plays with a lot. And then all the other characters are just kind of left in the background, but they have powers. So that's what makes them cool. The only thing that makes them cool, they have powers. They have powers, along with Edward. You know, the other vampires in his family, powers. Powers, that's all they have. And I think that's just really the underlying problems with Twilight. It's just make characters more likable. In particular, the main lead, Bella, as well as Edward, and make him less obsessive, compulsive, and crazy. That definitely, and less manipulative. These characters need to stop manipulating each other. It gets annoying, especially when, in the beginning of the second book, when Bella is crying over the fact that Edward left her, and you know she's at one point when she commits suicide because of that. That's really messed up, and really I don't understand why people would look up to that. That's not what you do when a boyfriend dumps you. You know, you don't do that. It's just no, you just don't do that. So make her way more likable, more identifiable, and more realistic. Same with Edward. More identifiable, less obsessive, and all around more likable character too. Because he does have some kooky kinds of behavior, kooky, not cookie, kooky, like cuckoo in the head kinds of behavior, and I think if they changed certain aspects of his character, they could have made him a lot more likable vampire and a lot more likable character as a whole. And I think part of that was just getting him out of the high school. Like, what is he doing there? Vampires don't go to high school. Go into the night in the woods. Go there. That's where you belong. That's where vampires belong, and so do werewolves. You know, you don't even need to go to school either, Jacob. You know, So yes, I think the likability of the characters definitely changed. Definitely did not need to hang on throughout 3 books, this love triangle. Definitely did not need to do that. No reason for it. Keep it either in the background or as something on the side, but really don't make it your centerpiece, because it just drags and it doesn't add anything to the characters as a whole, because throughout the entire 3 books it was just manipulation and creating more dislike, I think, for the characters, because I just don't like how she manipulates Jacob, and at the same time, you know, goes cuckoo bonkers for Edward. I just don't understand why these men are even after her in the first place, but which is really the real reason why. But I really don't understand why this needed to be the focal point of this entire franchise, just a love triangle. And because in order for a love triangle, you need to make the characters likable, and you will understand ultimately why the character chooses one over the other. You know, in this series, I never got the sense of why she would choose Edward over Jacob. It just never made sense to me. So yeah, that whole love triangle should just have been in the background, and not as your centerpiece for 3 books. And then again, by making the plot more interesting, I definitely think a mystery-like approach, where she, you know, solves this particular case, maybe dealing with the town and somebody getting hurt or murdered, you know, that kind of approach, you know, whether a vampire did it or werewolf, you know, somebody does it, you know, and then she has, you know, these vampire and werewolf friends, and, you know, the friends could be Edward and Jacob, you know, and I think that would have been a lot better idea, than, you know, and then she could also be herself, maybe a half werewolf, half human, or half vampire, half human, whatever, like Blade or something like that, you know, except it's less gory and so much more about the mystery and the drama. You know, I think that would have been a lot better, especially when you're dealing with more of a girl audience, and, you know, certain girls may not find blood and guts the most appealing thing to show on camera. So if they made it a lot more like a murder mystery kind of setup, I think that would have been a lot better. A lot better plot, and a lot better chance for Bella to develop as a character, and a lot better chance for the side characters as well, the vampires, the werewolves, and all those people to get more developed as well. And this could have been like a different case throughout each book, or it could have been, you know, one long case that goes on throughout the entire series until the end. That's how I think the plot could have been constructed. And as far as anything else goes, it's just the whole changing of vampires, and you know, making vampires act more like vampires, not having them come to school, not having them act like they're humans, because they're not. You need to make them vampires, you know. They're different creatures, they're different specimens. Yes, you can change around the mythology however you want. It's a free country, and I'm not going to say you have to make vampires this way. No, you have to make sure that they suck blood and all that stuff. But at least try to make them different and unlike humans, because they're vampires. And I think the issue that I had is she was just trying to make them too human. Too humanly constructed, especially with the whole vegetarian bit, as well as with them sparkling in the sun. I don't get that. But had she made them more like vampires and stuck with vampire type mesh qualities, and made them act more like vampire creatures, then they would have been a lot more interesting, I think, characters as a whole, instead of these, you know, humanoided vampires. Make them more like vampires and less like humans. But I think that's really all I can say about Twilight. These are really the four major components. More likable characters, or more plot, less triangles, more of an interesting plot, and vampires acting more like vampires, I think would have done this series a justice, and I think it would have made it a lot more interesting. But I think that's really all I can say about the Twilight franchise. I think that's really all I could say in regards to how I would change it and how I would have made it so that, in my opinion, it would have been a better product, ultimately. Would this have been a perfect product? Absolutely not. And I'm sure there's tons of other ideas of what people would have done, and I'm totally open to hearing those ideas, but I think that's really all I can say ultimately. I think it all just depends on your opinion, and in my personal opinion, a lot of things I felt needed to be changed for the series in order for me to kind of identify with it, and I think would get a lot more people invested in and a lot more people interested in the series. But I think that's really all I can say. Any questions, comments, concerns? More than happy to answer them, and you know, this is just my own personal opinion, and I'm not trying to say that those who like the series and who think it's perfect and wouldn't change it, I'm not trying to say that, you know, my opinion is right and yours is wrong, but this is just coming from my perspective, and I'm just hoping that whoever watches this video, regardless of your opinion of Twilight, that you just kind of listen to what I'm saying and don't take any of it, anything too personally, because this is all just for fun, and this is just really my own personal opinion, and you can take it for what it's worth. But I think that's really all I can say. Again, any questions, comments, concerns, more than happy to answer them, and until next time, everybody.